Namaste, Divine Friends. My name is Jeff Hippler, and in this session, we're going to cover the five koshas that make up the physical body, the energetic body, the ethereal body. We're going to go into a lot of detail on these koshas. These are probably something, if you went to a yoga teacher training, everybody memorizes and learns the koshas, and then they move on. Memorizing the koshas is kind of like memorizing the state capitals. Just by having them memorized and knowing the names doesn't really tell you that much about them. It's like, do you know the capital of Alaska? It's like, yes, I know the capital, but I'm not really, don't even know what anything else about it other than the name. And here we know the Annamaya kosha, the Pranamaya kosha, the Anandamaya kosha. We probably know those names, but if we just know them, we don't know how to use them. We don't know how it doesn't change our lives. We don't know how it interrelates to our meditation practice. We don't know how it relates to our pranayama practices. So we're going to go into a bit more detail, show how all of these pieces fit together, because it's in learning these interrelational aspects that we really start to gain a deeper knowledge of what this yoga practice is all about. So let's just jump right into it. Let's go over to the slides, and you look into the slides, and we have, here you can see we have the koshas are the sheaths. These are the sheaths that make up the body. The first sheath is the Annamaya kosha. The second one, Pranamaya kosha. The third sheath is Manomaya kosha. Fourth is Vijnanamaya kosha. And the fifth is Anandamaya kosha. And if you've got those known, if you've heard of them, hopefully the teacher training's got you so that those are familiar terms and you know those terms. You can rattle them off. You can take a test and say which ones are which, but it doesn't, yeah, get you that depth of knowledge you really want. So the Annamaya kosha is the physical body. That is what we're seeing. That is the physical part, what you see, what you touch. The Pranamaya kosha, the word prana is energy. That is the energy body. That is everything that's related to the energy aspects. And the Manomaya kosha is a mental body. Mana is mental. That's a mental body. Vijnanamaya kosha, Vij means intellect. So that's the body of the intellect. And Anandamaya kosha is Ananda means bliss. That's the bliss body. That's the self. And we can look at those and say, okay, the physical body is encompasses both the Annamaya kosha and the Pranamaya kosha. And the Pranamaya kosha kind of wraps itself around the physical body. They're overlaid on top of each other. But then the Manomaya kosha and Vijnanamaya kosha are all part of the astral body. And the astral body is located in the head, in the brain. And we'll show you where that is later on in this talk. And the last one, the Anandamaya kosha. The Anandamaya kosha is the bliss body. The bliss body is located in the heart. And we're going to go in through each one of these in a lot of detail, show a lot of the cross references of how these interrelate. Another interesting aspect is that there's five koshas here, and five is a magic number with the Sanskrit literature, and because it breaks down into the gunas. And if you look at the three gunas, sattvic, rajic, and tamasic, and those three gunas, and you have those two interrelationships between sattvic and rajasic and tasmic, you have the three become five. And those five now interrelate to those five koshas. And you can see they're also color coded: red, orange, yellow, green, and blue. because those also relate to the colors of the bottom five chakras as it all the pieces fit together. Tasmic, if you remember, Tasma is the retentive aspect of the gunas, the retentive aspect of nature, and the physical body is where everything is retained. Um, Rajasic is the mutative aspect. It's the aspect that changes, causes change. In the mental body, the mind's change. Its mind's always flickering. The mental body is the changing aspect, and the energy goes between the physical and the mental, and we'll see how that happens. And up on the top, sattvic, that is the essence. It's really the vital essence of what that subject is about. And when you look about us and our bodies, our essence is really the heart. Our essence is bliss. Our essence is love. And so the sattvic aspect of the koshas is the bliss body. And the intellect is between the mental bodies and the bliss bodies. So the Vijnanamaya kosha is half sattvic, half rajasic. And so that's how the five becomes, or the three becomes five. In teacher training, they like to talk about these five koshas sort of as nesting dolls. And I've seen examples of, yeah, you get those Russian nesting dolls. You have the small one and then the big one and the bigger one. And eventually you get into the five dolls stacked into each other, and the sheaths are overlaid on top of each other, encasing it, with the physical body is encased in the energy body, which is encased in the mental body. But that's not really how it works. And if we go to the next slide, we can see really that koshas are like chocolate. I like to think of koshas as being like chocolate. And in chocolate, you have five aspects of chocolate. I mean, when you think about chocolate, what do you think about? You can't really just think about chocolate. You think about hot chocolate or frozen chocolate, or you'll think about, yeah, this picture of chocolate Easter bunnies is what you have. And you might think about how the chocolate tastes, and it just has such a wonderful taste, and how dark chocolate tastes different from the semi-sweet, and some chocolates are just really smooth and creamy, and but it's all chocolate, but it's we can break that down into chocolate into five aspects. Chocolate, you can look at the temperature of the chocolate, hot and cold. You can look at the texture of the chocolate, the smooth, creamy, chunky, the taste of chocolate, of course. But usually, when you say, oh, here's a piece of chocolate, the first thing you think about is the form. Is it a Hershey's bar? Is it a Kiss? Is it a yeah, hot chocolate drink? It's the form that really we relate to the most on chocolate, just like with the chocolate Easter bunny. And that's really, when you look at the koshas, it's the Anandamaya kosha is the kosha of chocolate. So chocolate and the koshas have the same name because chocolate's essence is chocolate. And the Vijnanamaya kosha, you could say, well, that's the temperature. The Manomaya kosha, the mental aspect, is the texture of the chocolate. Pranamaya kosha, the energy aspect, is the taste, because taste has an energy aspect to it. But really, the Annamaya kosha is the form aspect of it. And so we have the form of the chocolate is the retentive aspect of chocolate. And so now you can see we have the five koshas related to the body, and also you could five aspects related to just chocolate. That with the chocolate you can see that, yeah, the taste isn't contained within the texture. The taste and texture aren't contained within the temperature. They're just different aspects, different dimensions of the same being, but you take all those dimensions to create the whole, to create the thing that we're looking for. And with the koshas, we're trying to create us. We're trying to create our beings, our lives, our existence here in this plane. And that's what those koshas are explaining. So now we'll just go through those one at a time. The physical body we'll go through quickly because the physical body, yeah, that's the cosmic aspect. It's a retentive aspect. It's kind of like the wick in the candle. The fire burns, but the wick, the function of the wick is really just to hold that fire in one place. So the fire's not wandering around the candle. It just holds it in place. And the body is our retentive aspect. It just holds us here in place. It's where we can say we are, where we reside. It's a physical aspect. And what we do is we strengthen on that aspect through our asanas. Our asana practice is really focused on working on the physical body. And so you see all of this exercise, all of these various regimes, it's all for just taking care of the Annamaya kosha, our physical body. It might be useful at this point, bring up an aspect we're going to be repeating through this theme. It's really a spiritual law that you really can't solve any problem on the plane of the problem. Yeah, you might seen some memes of, I saw a meme the other day of a rabbit in a rabbit cage that couldn't get out, even though the cage was only like 6 inches high and there was no lid. He was just trapped because he couldn't get into another plane to just hop out of the cage. I forget the title, but it was like, think differently, change your mind, change your environment. And that's a visual aspect of this spiritual law, that you can't solve the problem on the plane of the problem. If you have a physical ailment, you can't really treat it through physical means. If you have a cut, you can put a Band-Aid on. If you have a headache, you can take some medicine, but it's not fixing the underlying problem. It's really just fixing the symptoms. And lots of time fixing the symptoms is enough or all we need. But if you really want to solve the root cause, the inherent issue with the problem, you go deeper. You look at the root cause. The root cause is often in a different plane. And so, and with the physical body, it's like if we really want to heal the physical body, we go to the next level. What's the next level? It's a pranamaya kosha, the prana. If you want to feel the physical body, you go and look at the pranic aspects of it. The pranamaya kosha is really encompasses all of the aspects of prana within the body. Prana are the living energy that keeps that body alive and animated. You can look at prana, and the best definition I've heard really is intelligent energy. That's the energy that digests our food. It's the energy that moves the body. It's the energy that enlightens the mind. It's the energy that causes cell division, that gets the cells to divide. It's really the energy that keeps us going. And the body is set up in a structure so that the energy can flow effectively. And that's what the Pranamaya kosha is all about. The Pranamaya kosha is this sheath of energy in which the energy can flow. Usually when you look at the Pranamaya kosha, you look at the chakras. And usually you look at the bottom 6 chakras at the base of the tailbone, the sacrum, the navel, the heart, the throat, back of the head, the bottom 6 chakras. Sometimes you take the 7th chakra involved, and on the Sushumna at the base of the head. There's also an 8th chakra up above outside the body that is used. And we'll have another talk about chakras and energy aspects of those in another talk. But just like here, it's not useful to just know that those chakras exist, but how to use them. And so, but that's another subject. We'll get that to another time. But to know that the chakras are the base places where the energy is in the body. That's kind of the seeds of the energy. and they overlay the nerve plexus. If you look at the nerves in the body, you have various plexes at each of those chakra points. And it's not really a coincidence that those chakras are right at the nerve plexus, because where you have a bundle of nerves is really where the energy is being transmitted, just like a old-fashioned telephone switchboard. You're doing the switching, the moving, the communication. The chakras are just centers of energy, and we move them through those six. We also have three other main nadis. You have the Sushumna, which is the energy channel right up through the center of the spinal column, where we can transmit the energy from the bottom of our bottom chakra, our Muladhara chakra, up to our Sahasrara, can go right up through that Sushumna. We have two other energy channels on the right and left of our spinal column, the Ida and Pingala. Those two, Ida and Pingala, transmit the male and female, the solar and lunar energies up through the body. But there's really a lot of nadis in the body, whereas nadis are the channels by which the energy flows. The ancient texts say that we have 727,210,101 nadis in the body. Nadis being channels by which we can flow energy in through the body. These nadis include all of our nerves. It includes our vessels, our capillaries, our arteries, and all of the subtle energy channels behind those physical channels, just like the chakras are the subtle energy behind the nerve plexus. There's also the subtle energy channels behind each one of these physical channels. And that's how our energy flows. And how do we access that physical body? Or that energetic body. We access that energetic body through our pranayama practice. The pranayama practice is designed for strengthening and balancing these different pranic energies in the body. And some of us, you've done acupuncture, you hit the energy channels, you can strengthen the body. Some people, you can see when you're sick, when you're tired, you're leaned over, you're just not feeling well, the energy's not flowing, and then you get healthy, and all of a sudden, the energy's flowing back in the body again. You can see the light in people's eyes, you see the energy lift. We've all used the term having a low energy day, a bright sunny day by the beach. You're just full of energy, full of prana. The energy is flowing so well. And so by healing, by enlivening the pranic body, we can actually heal the physical body. And so that's one of those aspects of, if you really want to get healing at one level, take it up to the next level. So if you really want to do some serious healing on the physical level, look at Reiki, do acupuncture, do massage. A lot of the really good massage is more than just physical manipulation, but opening up channels so that the energy can flow through the body with more ease, with more grace, so that it could flow through there. And there's five aspects. I'll introduce the five aspects of prana. We can go over to the slide. There's actually five pranas in the body. And just like with five koshas, the five pranas, the first one is prana, next one udana, third one vyana, then we have apana, and the last one is samana. And you can see these are all color coded, and you could probably guess that, these five are break down into the three separate gunas of sattvic, Rajasic, and Tamasic, where just like chocolate, the sattvic prana is called prana, just like the sattvic chocolate was called chocolate, because the essence of prana is prana. And then udana and vyana. Vyana is the mutative aspect of prana, and going down to the bottom, the samana is the retentive aspect, the cosmic aspect of the prana. But what do these do? Let's give a quick definition and then we'll move on. Prana does a communication with the chitta, and we'll explain those terms later, which is why we're introducing those now. But prana basically is the communication in the chitta and communication in the um, throughout the whole mind, ego, intellect, bodies. The udana is our internal awareness of the body. It creates the awareness of where things are within the body, our stomach, our liver, our heart. We can feel those. We have that just awareness of what is in the body. And udana also stays behind after the body, after the spirit has left the body, to do that final decomposition, because there's that aspect that still takes energy to do that transformation. The Vyana, the um, Rajasic aspect of the Vyana, that controls all the motor functions of the body. The legs, the arms, just those gross movements of the body. The muscles, the ligaments, the tendons, all those are controlled by the energy of Vyana. Apana segregates the waste products. It is usually considered just our daily eliminations of solid and liquid waste, but actually all the cells are eliminating waste product. They're putting off CO2 during respiration. They're putting off uric acid. It's part of the metabolistic process. So doing all those segregations, as well as the kidneys doing segregations as they purify the blood and segregate the good from the bad. All of those are aponic aspects. And the aponic chi, the kidney chi, is really that chi that gives you that enliven up through the body. If you study Chinese medicine, all their medicine is based on various energetic aspects, with the idea that, yeah, again, how this energy heals the body. The body heals itself with the help of this energy. And then the last prana is samana. Samana prana converts the food we eat to nutrients and then helps those nutrients from those food get absorption into the body. And so it helps everything we eat be retained in the body. So that's our retentive aspect of prana. So we finished talking about the Annamaya kosha, the physical body, and the Pranamaya kosha, the energetic body, which you recall in the first slide, we're both in the physical body. So now we're going to jump into the Manomaya kosha, the mental body. The mental body, if you recall, is located in the astral body. The astral body is located in the head. It's a small egg-shaped, and it sits just right below the top center of the head, right behind the forehead and the point between the eyebrows, just centered right in. And if we go to our next slide, looking at the astral body, here we can see, yeah, the side view of the head, and then we'll bring the astral body in. And you can see the astral body just sits right there, right in the center of the brain. It covers all the main functions of the brain. Not that there aren't any non-main functions, but it covers all of the major um, glands, the pineal, the pituitary gland. It covers the voice center, the optical centers. It covers the parts for memory, the parts for emotions. All of those pieces are wrapped up in the astral body and cover the mental aspects of Manomaya kosha. So let's go to the next slide. and look at it a little bit more detail. Let's do a cross section of this astral body. And with this astral body, we see that we have a center core, and around this center core, we have, we'll put in 5 little spheres. And this is what the deep meditators see in samadhi. This is reproducible data. And I have a reference at the end of the talk where you can find some more details on this. But around the center of the core of the astral body, you'll have 5 spheres that represent the karmandriya, the bodies of action, the essence of action for the body. The karmandriya are the vocal aspects, the manual aspects, the legs, the excretory, and the reproductive. If you saw the discourse on Sankhya yoga, you would see that we have 5 karmandriyas and 5 jnanendriyas, and you look at the jnanendriyas here. The 5 jnanendriyas are the auditory, the dermal, the visual, the gustatory, and the olfactory aspects. And so we have the 5 elements of motor action. We have the 5 elements of sense perception, all surrounding the core of this astral body. And what these bodies do is they spin around the core. They just spin around the center of this main axis of the astral body, and they communicate. And we put a little light in there, as you can see here. And with that light, we have communication. And here we're showing communication between the excretory aspect and the center of the mind. But as we function throughout the day, it's this mechanism that allows us to um, experience the world, because all of our experience of the world come through these 5 jnanendriya, these 5 elements of sense perception. Everything we see, everything we feel comes from these elements. And these elements overlap the physical senses of the eyes, the ears, the spinal column for touch. And so it's how those senses go from the physical senses to the energetic jnanendriya and then get transmitted into the mind. And likewise, the energy is reversed the other way. As you want to move, it comes from the center of the mind. The signal goes out with a pranic signal, our sattvic aspect of prana. This is the sattvic aspect of prana that's doing its communication. And it goes to tell the legs to move. And you wonder, well, when I want to move my legs, how does that actually happen? It comes from the Manomaya kosha, encouraging, sending a signal to the appropriate karmandriya, so that element, that aspect can then trigger the right nerves within the brain so that the energy could get transmitted down through the Vijnana prana. And so this is how this all works. And it's all wrapped around one big encasement. And that encasement is really the 5 tanmatras, the 5 tanmatras of sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. So you have the tanmatras, the elements that make up the physical world, as well as the 5 elements of motor senses and the 5 elements of sense perception. And these are, 15 of the 24 elements of Sankhya philosophy. If you remember, the 3 of the other ones were the mind, ego, intellect, which we're covering now within the astral and causal bodies. So this is how Sankhya yoga gets really condensed into the physical body and brings everything back together. When you look at this picture and reflect on, what is this telling us with the Manomaya kosha in the astral body? it's really telling us that the astral body is what's making our body function. It's really controlling the body functions. And the brain and the pituitary pineal gland, all of those are subservient to the astral body. So the astral body makes the brain work, not the other way around. So with you look at it as the brain is just an organ, like a leg muscle or a hand. They're just organs that work off of a higher energy. And also, this is a Manomaya kosha, the mental aspect, which is the memory. And the memory here, you look at this and say, well, all of our senses are going into this core. Everything we remember is being stored in the brain. And so all of our short-term memories in the brain, you look at it, the brain is almost like a flash drive. We store all of the things that we need to function for a given day up in that short-term memory. And when we go to sleep at night, we download that flash drive to our long-term memory, which foreshadowing is in our causal body, so that we can download that flash drive so that we have more room to function another day. You can hear people that when they're working really hard, they just say, oh, my brain is full, my brain is stuffed full, I can't get anything else in there. That's a physical reality. The brain has a capacity. And when we're tired, our brain's tired, we go to sleep, we, um, we clean out that memory. So we wake up, our brain feels fresh, we feel alive, we have more room. And we do store a little bit in the brain, but just the things that are critical. And one of the keys to sleeping less is not fill up that brain full of useless information. If you keep the brain just full of things you really need, not fill up with side stuff. Don't fill up your flash drive full of memes and Facebook stories. Just fill it full of what you need, and then you'll need less sleep because then your brain will be not working quite as hard. You won't have that storage issue. And so you can function on a much lighter level. And you see people that are working really hard and they just need to sleep a lot, not necessarily physical, but mental. And that's how two of these pieces fit together. You also look at, yeah, like my mom has, yeah, dementia, beginning stage of the dementia, and you can just see her brain just isn't quite functioning like it used to. The short-term memory isn't quite there. The long-term memory is there. You can bring in some long-term stories because the long-term isn't stored up in the brain. So if the brain isn't working, you can still upload material that's stored in the heart and bring that up to the brain and be able to function. And you can still see and still hear and still relate on a cognitive level, but not quite as on a deeper level because the brain just isn't quite there. So that is our Manomaya kosha. That is how that aspect of the mental energy works. That's really how the body works. Let's switch pages and go over to the Vijnanamaya kosha. The Vijnanamaya kosha is the plane of the intellect. And the Vijnanamaya kosha, if you remember the first slide, is also stored in the astral body. This astral body that we showed on this past slide has a Vijnanamaya kosha, but it's a different energy. And you can really see that, yeah, with my mom, with the intellect, because the intellect is the ability not only to um, bring in sense perceptions, to be able to taste things, to be able to hear things, to be able to speak, to be able to move, but be able to think deeply, to be able to analyze, to be able to take disparate thoughts like we're doing here, bringing in different aspects and bringing them together. That is the aspect of the intellect. The intellect doesn't just respond to what's in front of it. It can think deeply, it can contemplate. And that is one of the earlier signs of dementia, when you just don't have that ability to think, to analyze, to get a lot of data and to pull in and pull out the good data, disregard the bad data because it just doesn't seem consistent with everything else that you've been seeing and hearing. So that is the aspect of the intellect, and it's our higher intellect that is one of the aspects that's able to separate humans from lower animals, because we have the intellect to be able to think, to contemplate, to reflect. When you are residing in the intellect, um, you are really focusing on the third eye. You're like, I'm thinking, I'm thinking, I'm thinking. And that is really your key, that the intellect is sitting right here on the front of the forehead. Yeah, if you trying to think of something that you forgot yesterday, you're like, oh, that's in the back of my mind. That's your mental aspect. But the forehead, between the eyebrows, that's the seat of the intellect. And so when we really are focusing, we're squinting our eyes, we're really trying to energize the point between the eyebrows. And if we really want to abide in the intellect, what we do is we go into our meditation and we focus at that point, and we relax all that mental energy, and we then can stop the spinning of the balls and the um, nerves and the prana firing into the Manomaya kosha. We're like, let's quiet the mind. If you quiet the mind, then that mind is not racing. You're not pulling in all those sense perceptions. You're not running out all of those senses of motor action. You are just, the mind is still. When the mind is still, then you can analyze things deeply. And so it's like, yeah, the mind is racing. You have everything going around, but no, you want to sit quietly, rest in the Vijnanamaya kosha, rest in your intellect. And then by resting that intellect, you have that calmness, that abiding in the head. And if you really rest in the intellect, then what you can do in deep meditation is see this the light of the third eye. And here's a picture of the third eye light that you see when you're abiding in deep meditation. A five-pointed star, a bright white, infinitely bright white star sitting on a blue background, surrounded by a gold ring. And that bright star is five-pointed to represent the five um, elements of creation: the earth, the fire, the air, the ether, and the water are the elements, the physical elements that are um, making up that five-pointed star. And that star, we see it when we focus on the point of the eyebrow, but really it doesn't exist there. It really exists within that astral body. And you don't see it with your physical eyes, because with your physical eyes, they're turned off. You really aren't seeing it with your mental body, because it's even subtler than the mental mind. So the Manomaya kosha can't see the Vijnanamaya kosha because it's even subtler, just like the physical body can't see the energetic body. And so what you're doing is really you're just seeing it, you're intuiting it, you are just aware that it exists. And you can't analyze it, you just see it, and it abides in the astral body, and it's floating around in there, but really devoid of space and time. Once you're really wrapped up and see it, you just don't really can't pin down where it is. It just exists, and it is, because there is no really space and time. Yeah, you can tie into the intellect. Another aspect of the intellect, if you want to have an experience, there's another meme, I'm into memes, going around that people are saying I've seen recently. It's like, oh, turn down the radio. I'm driving. I have to think. There's too much traffic, which is kind of humorous, especially because we've probably all ran into that. We are getting overloaded with our sense perceptions, and we can no longer use our intellect to really contemplate. We're just getting sensory overload. And sensory overload, yeah, inhibits our intellectual capacity until you find the way of tuning out all of those sensories, and you can just finally focus on the intellect, and those senses become irrelevant. But that's an aspect of meditation that we develop by being using our pranayama. As we said in previous sessions, the goal of pranayama is really to disconnect those mental aspects of the body, to disconnect our organs of sense perception and our organs of motor action. So by refining the pranic aspects, we have more control over the mental aspects. We have more control over the communication of what our ears hear, connecting to what our mind comprehends from what the ears are hearing. And so if we can disconnect our organ of hearing from the energy of auditory um, conception, then we can totally block out all the hearing, which is wonderful if you're striving for deep meditation, or wonderful if you're just in a busy, very busy office, a very noisy area, and you need to contemplate deeply. You just get so deep, and you've seen this, you're aware of it, you get so deeply concentrating on what your kids are doing, your crossword puzzle, whatever your daily activities are, that you have no sense of what's going on around you. That is a functional aspect of being wrapped in the Vijnanamaya kosha, the intellect body, to the whole absence of the mental body, the energetic body, and the physical body. So these are the bottom four bodies, the more detailed physical bodies. Let's jump up one more. Let's jump up to the top body, the causal body. The causal body is located in the heart. It's about the size of your tip of your thumb. It's located right in the center of the body, right between the breastbone. If you want to find it, the best way to find it is with your intuition. Just close your eyes, quiet the senses, and just intuit where is the most sensitive part of the body. When you're feeling something, when you're feeling it, where do you feel it? You know you feel it right there. And it's just a tip of the thumb located right there just under the breastbone, which is your fourth chakra. So that is where it is. And that body has multiple sheaths to it. You have four, you have multiple sheaths in the body. So let's just jump in and go to that slide. So if we take a cross section of the Annamaya kosha, this body of bliss within the heart, the foundation of that is a white sphere. It's Brahma mandala, the Brahma mandala. It is the field of Brahma. It is our what Brahma, the creator God, has imbued within us to exist as sentient beings. The Brahma mandala. That is the foundation structure of the Annamaya kosha. The next layer is the Mula Prakriti, and it can be seen in deep meditation as a golden ring. And that golden ring is the Mula Prakriti. If you remember the discussion we had on the 24 aspects of Sankhya yoga, this is the Mula Prakriti is the unmanifest energy of the Creator God creating the body. And we are all created as one in this physical world. And we're all various aspects of this Mula Prakriti. So when you say that we are all one in this world, we're all attached in this world, it's this Mula Prakriti that is the actual energy that's connecting all of us. Yeah, as we recall in Samkhya, it's not our individual being, it's not our witness, it's not the big I, that I exist. It's not I as a witness, because each I as a witness is separate. We're all separate individual entities, all separate individual witnesses in the Purusha, but within Prakriti, within the physical world, we're all interconnected through this Mula Prakriti. And this connects us with each other. It also connects us up through every other aspects in this world into the divine and connects us into all the higher gods. The third level, as a salmon color, is the Shukshma Prana. The Shukshma Prana are the five pranic energies on a subtler level. It is the prana, the udana, the vyana, the apana, and the samana on a subtler level. These are the five pranic aspects that allow the communication to go within the heart. As we'll get into the heart center, then we'll come back out. The next level is the ahamkara. The ahamkara is the ego. It's the I exist aspect of it. If you remember in our Samkhya philosophy, you have the mind, the ego, and the intellect. The mind is the Manomaya kosha. The intellect is the Vijnanamaya kosha, both of which exist in the astral body. This is the ego, ahamkara aspect of the mind, ego, intellect. And this is um, near the core of the causal body. Everything outside of the ahamkara gets filtered through the ahamkara into the center of the causal body. The center of the causal body here, as an infinitely small pinprick of white light, is the chitta. And we finally got our way into the chitta. The chitta is the I am. This is the I exist. This is our connection with our Purusha, the I exist in the Prakriti, the physical world. The Purusha and Prakriti are interconnected into this chitta. And this chitta is the I. So when you're meditating on the heart, you're meditating on the I, you're into a meditation, guided meditation, and they say, conceive of the bright light in the inner heart. Feel that light, conceive of it. That is what we're doing, is we're trying to conceive of that chitta. We're trying to connect with that chitta, to realize that that chitta is us and realize that, to become realized. But the problem with the chitta is that it's wrapped around the ego. And so everything that comes in through into the chitta is colored by that ego. So the only way to get into the chitta is to transcend the ego. You can't destroy it, you can't dissolve it, it's there. You just have to acknowledge that it exists and just flow through that as a porous barrier. But when the chitta interacts with the astral body, when it interacts with the mind and intellect, it's going through the ego and it's using the Shukshma Prana to do that communication between the heart and the head. And the heart and the head have a special pranic channel. It's sort of like a hotline. There's one channel between the head and the heart, between the center of the astral body and the center of the causal body. And that place is just a very fine, subtle energy. The halfway point is at the throat chakra. And if you want to energize that channel, that's where the Ujjayi breath comes in. By doing a subtle Ujjayi breath, you're actually vibrating that energetic channel between the two, amplifying it, getting it energized, because the best way to pluck a string is right at the center, so you don't get any of those secondary harmonics. And in one of the earlier sessions, we talked about Ujjayi breath and how the Ujjayi breath needs to be an energy from the heart, because that's what we're doing here. We are pulling up that heartfelt chitta energy. We're vibrating it with the throat and getting it into the intellect, so that highway becomes much more efficient. And why do we need that highway efficient? The Yoga Sutras tell us that all our memories are stored in the heart. All the memories from this lives, all the memories from last lives, all the memories are stored deep within the heart. It's pretty much the grace of God that prevents our memories from previous lives from leaking through, so that we can live this life in a more focused manner. But the higher meditators, the higher gods, can see all their lives. And with past lives regression, sometimes you can access those lives, because everything exists in the heart. And the way you can now see how the mind-heart connection works. When you want to pull a memory up, you pull it up from the heart, you take it into the brain. And the function of the brain is to bring that memory up and act as a 3D holographic screen, so that you can visualize that memory in your mind's eye, in that third eye, in your Vijnanamaya kosha. And so with the intellect, you can see it, you can contemplate it, and then you can let it go and drop it back into the heart. And so the heart-centered meditation is really the highest level of meditation of what we can do, because we are connecting within ourselves. But the challenge with that heart-centered meditation is it's hard, it's difficult. It's hard to transcend the ego. It's hard to quiet the prana. It's hard to quiet the mind. We're always racing. The spheres are always running circles around the astral body, and so just trying to keep quiet. But we go to the first verse of the Yoga Sutras, which says, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is a cessation of the fluctuations of the mind. Now we can really understand at a deeper level what that verse, what that sutra is telling us. It's like, if we can silence our astral body, if we can silence the mind, if we can silence the intellect, if we can silence the Shukshma prana, so that we don't have any pranic communication between the heart and the head, if we can transcend the ego, so that sheath of ego around the chitta is no longer there, no longer in the way, then we can abide within the chitta. Then we can abide quietly within the chitta, and then we can, at that point, realize who we really are. And that is the ultimate goal, the ultimate promise of yoga. And with that being the ultimate goal of yoga, the path of the Yoga Sutras gives us a nice, clear, clean framework for getting there. Because for a beginning meditator, a beginning seeker, a beginning devotee, it's very difficult to just jump right to that, and can be frustrating without the tools and techniques. And so that's where the Eightfold Path of the Yoga Sutras come in. That's why we do a lot of work with the mental aspects, with the intellect aspects, because it's a lot easier to work with the mind and intellect than to work with the heart, because it's very much more familiar. It's a lot easier to learn to quiet the mind, keep those spheres from spinning, keep the body calm, get that sense of anesthesia when you're sitting, get to the point where those sense perceptions are no longer bothering you. And then you have that calmness to get back into your heart and to find that path. And the Yoga Sutras, written by Pantanjali, was written in a similar manner to what we're seeing nowadays. He wrote that about 4 or 5 thousand years ago. And back then there was, the Bhagavad Gita was at the same time, and there were just so many different yoga practices, so many different paths, so many different ways of approaching yoga. And it was also at the time of the beginning of Kali Yuga, when we were going to be heading into the more darker, more grosser aspects of the cycle of evolution. So what he did is he wrote one simple path, codified one path and say there's lots of paths to the divine, but here's a path that has been proven to work time and time again. It's a nice, clean, simple path. And he wrote that out for his devotees. He didn't really write it for greater publication to put up on the web and everybody to share. It was just crib notes for his devotees, and wrote it in kind of a cryptic form because there was a lot of oral transmission as he was teaching them. But it was like, here's your notes as you're doing your practice and you're studying. This is what you need to remember. Started out with what yoga is, calming the chitta and abiding in there, and ending up in the fourth book of all the magnificent powers that you get once you abide in the chitta. And then once you abide, you get phenomenal powers, but then the challenge becomes to not get attached to those powers, because those are an allure just like this physical world is a lure. You get attached to it, it pulls you away from the realization. So, so that is our talk on koshas. So let's flip over to our summary slide. So let's summarize. What did we do? We talked about the koshas, but we really got a deeper understanding. And the main summary, number one, is really you are the chitta. You are the light within the heart. You are the bliss body. Once you find that bliss body and abide in it, it is just ever new, everlasting bliss. That's the goal. But how do we find it? That's the trick. To find it, what we need to do is really the first thing to do is just strengthen the body. You need to have a healthy body to be able to do this journey. And how do you strengthen the body? Through your asana practice. The entrance point is through asana. And then what do you do next after you do the asana? You energize the cells. You do your pranayama. Energize the cells, get control of all the pranic aspects of the body. And then what do? You negate the senses. You quiet the mind. You stop that mind from spinning. You have enough control of the prana that you can silence the mind, quiet the senses. That's our pratyahara, silence of the senses. And then the next step is to transcend the ego, the dhyana. That is typically defined as concentration. But when you're deeply concentrated, you are transcending the ego. You no longer have a sense when you are concentrating of I am. You're not like I am concentrating. When you're really concentrating, dhyana, concentration, you are transcending the ego. And then once you transcend the ego in dhyana, you are doing your meditation, dhyana. Dhyana. You are merging with that object of concentration. So if you're concentrating on the heart center, you're concentrating on the self, you have transcended the ego because you're concentrating on the self. Now you are in deep meditation. You have transcended the ego. You have stilled the chitta. You have realized yourself as the self through your meditation practice. And once you've done that, you have reached the eighth stage of the Yoga Sutras, Eightfold Path. You are in Samadhi. And don't think of Samadhi as some esoteric philosophical realm, but it's a beginning place. Yeah, I've known several people that have got into samadhi. It's real. You can get there. Once you're there, there's multiple stages of samadhi. There's samadhi with seed, where you're concentrating on a physical aspect, and then there's samadhi without seed, which is the higher level of samadhi. And once you get into samadhi, it's a different world, but still it's working on a different plane now. As we talk about, to solve your problems, you get to the higher plane. And so once you get into samadhi, all your issues of the intellect are solved. With the intellect and the mind, the saying mind over matter. Once you master the mind, you can control the pranic body. Once you control the prana, you have control over the physical body. And so you go up through the 5 levels of the koshas, you go back down through the 5 levels, operating on the highest level you can. And so this is an interrelationship between the Eightfold Path of the Yoga Sutras, our asana practice, our koshas, Sankhya philosophy, and all these pieces as we work in pulling all these various threads, all these various sutras together and make them real and make them alive within your own practice. If you'd like more information on this area, um, please visit the website of our nonprofit organization, hansavedas.com. The slide is right here on your screen. Hansavedas.com is the nonprofit that I'm involved with our whole goal of the nonprofit is to be able to preserve and disseminate these gems of wisdom from Sanskrit technology, from Sanskrit literature. And you can visit our website here at hansavedas.org. There's a wealth of information, both on philosophy, on yoga, on art, on literature, a very wealth of organization. Especially, please visit our link within there on publications.hansavedas.org. You go there, we have several hundred hours of high-level discourses, much higher than I could touch here at this level. Many of them free, but there's also a subscription platform for a nominal monthly fee. You can get into a very deep depth of Samkhya yoga philosophy. And last off, if you go into that publication, there's also a booklet on consciousness. This consciousness booklet is where much of the information from this discourse came from. This was a talk by the divine saint, His Holiness Swami Vijnanamaya Giri, who's also my personal teacher. He gave this talk in India in 2006, and you can find the details from this talk plus much more in that pamphlet. It's right now it's $2. You can purchase it online, have it shipped, be reading it by the end of the week. So with that, thank you very much for your kind attention. Hope you found this useful and informative. Thank you. Namaste.